We've all done it, right? Walk into a library, grab a book, check it out. Seems simple enough. But what if I told you that behind that one simple act, there's this massive, hidden engine of people and planning? Well, today, we're going to pull back that curtain and see how a library really works. You know, libraries today are so much more than just these quiet buildings full of books. They're vibrant, dynamic places for the whole community. But to make a space like this actually work, there's a super complex system humming along just out of sight. Okay, so think about the last book you picked up from the library. How did it get there? I mean, it didn't just poof onto the shelf, right? That book went on a whole journey, with tons of decisions made way before you even thought about reading it. So, let's do it. Let's follow that path right from the very beginning. So, where does it all start? With a really big question. Which books even belong here? This isn't just some random shopping spree. Nope, it's a super strategic process, and it has a name. Collection development. So, what is collection development really? It's basically the library's game plan for building a collection that actually makes sense for its users. You know, back in the 80s, there was this big shift. The goal stopped being about just hoarding things and became about providing a service that's totally tailored to what the community actually needs, whether that's for studying, deep research, or just curling up with a good story. And this whole thing is like a continuous cycle. It all kicks off by figuring out what you, the user, actually want. They do interviews, surveys, you name it. That info helps them create the rules for buying new books and even for sharing stuff with other libraries. But here's a twist. Adding books is only half the battle. Getting rid of them is just as important. That's called weeding, and it's how they make sure the collection doesn't get cluttered with old, damaged, or just plain irrelevant stuff. Okay, so the library has its wish list. Awesome. But who pays for it all? And who's doing all this work? Well, that gets us to the absolute backbone of any library, the money and the people. So where does the cash come from? For your typical public library, it's a mix. The biggest chunk? That usually comes from local taxes. Some places call them library rates. Then you've got government grants, which can be a huge help. And yeah, those late fees you hate paying, they do chip in, but honestly, it's a pretty tiny slice of the pie. And of course, money's one thing, but a library is absolutely nothing without its people. The official term for managing the team is Human Resource Management, HRM for short. But let's be real, behind that acronym are the actual librarians, the assistants, all the specialists. They're the library's real treasure. And building that amazing team involves a couple of key steps. First up is job analysis. Think of it like making a recipe for a job. What are the ingredients, the daily tasks, and what skills does the person need? Then once you have that recipe, you do a job evaluation. That's where you figure out a fair salary by comparing that job to others out there. All right, so the book has been picked, the money's there, the order's in. And then a box shows up at the library. But hold on, the book inside isn't ready for the shelf just yet. Oh no. Its real journey is just getting started. The very first thing that happens when a new book comes in is a process called accessioning. That sounds kind of fancy, but it just means it's officially entered into the library's records. It gets its own unique number, and boom, it's now a permanent part of the collection. It's basically the book's official birth certificate for the library. Now, to keep track of this book, it needs an ID. For years, it was that classic barcode you have to scan up close. But now, a lot of libraries are using these cool RFID tags that use radio waves. This whole system is handled by the technical processing team, and it's their job to make sure the library knows exactly where every single thing is all the time. Okay, the book is in the system, but how do you find it in a sea of thousands of other books? That's where the catalog comes in. It's a super detailed record for every single item, title, author, what it's about, everything. The source material had this perfect way of putting it. The catalog is a guide map of the library resources. And seriously, without that map, we would be completely lost. The last piece of the puzzle before it finally hits the shelf is classification. This is where a skilled person gives the book its special call number based on what it's about. That number is its address, telling it exactly where to live on the shelf, right next to other books on the very same topic. When you think about it, it's kind of like a physical map of all human knowledge, all laid out for you. So after all that work behind the scenes, our book's journey is almost over. It's been picked, paid for, processed, and given its proper home. And now it's finally ready for you. And this is the part you definitely know, the circulation desk. This place is the library's command center.
The staff here are on the front lines, managing this constant river of books flowing out into the world and then back again. They handle everything: checkouts, returns, renewals, and yep, they're the ones who collect those fines.
But wait, when a book is returned, it doesn't just magically fly back to the shelf. Who does that? That is the super important and almost totally invisible job of the maintenance section. These folks are basically the guardians of order. They make sure every single book gets back to its exact spot, and let me tell you, without them, the whole system would just fall apart.
So the book is on the shelf, ready for you to find. But the library's work? It's never, ever done. Beyond just one book's journey, there are these massive processes constantly churning in the background just to keep the whole machine running smoothly.
Okay, here's a wild fact I bet you've never thought about. Because of financial rules, a library with up to 20,000 books has to do a physical inventory of every single item once a year. Can you imagine that? Someone has to physically touch every single book to make sure it's all there. For the really huge libraries, they have to do this massive job every 3 years. Wow.
All this hidden work, all these systems, it all points to this one simple truth. And our source material says it perfectly. Library is the heart of any academic institution. I mean, it really is, isn't it? It's like the central organ, pumping life, pumping knowledge through the whole community.
And that really brings us full circle to what a library is today. It's not some dusty old warehouse. It's a living, breathing system for lifelong learning. From a little kid's very first picture book to a grad student's heavy-duty research, that unseen engine of the library is always running, quietly powering our quest for knowledge every step of the way.
So the next time you walk through those library doors, just pause for a second. Look around at all those books. Think about the incredible, invisible journey each one of them took to get there. Now that you've had a peek behind the curtain, what are you going to see differently?